So once again, a very good afternoon to all the participants and expert Dr. P.E.S.N. Raju, Head R&D, Ampere Hour Solar Technology Private Limited, Pune. So Dr. P.S.N. Raju received his bachelor and master degree in electrical and electronics engineering and advanced power system respectively from JNTU, Kakinada, India. He obtained his PhD in the discipline of electrical engineering from Indian Institute of Technology, Indore, IIT Indore, India in 2017. He was a postdoctoral research associate at the University of Manchester, UK, on a project titled Real Time Monitoring and Control to Enable Transmission Network Transition. Work Package 2 of Migrate stands for Massive Integration of Power Electronics Devices project for a period of 2 years. He is currently working as a head research and development at Ampere Hour Solar Technology Private Limited, Pune, India. He has published 15 publications in various international peer-reviewed journals, conferences, and book chapters. His research interests include power system, microgrids with renewable energy source integration, power electronics, applications to the power system, applications of optimization, machine learning techniques to the power system, microgrids, energy storage system management, and PMUs, application to the power system microgrids. So now I request you, sir, kindly start your presentation.
Yeah, thank you for giving me the opportunity to present to all the respected participants. So good morning and good afternoon to one and all. So I'm going to present on energy management of microgrids for smart cities. So as introduced by Dr. Vijay Pratap Singh, myself Razu, and I'm currently working as a head R&D in Ampere Hour Solar Technology Private Limited based in Pune. So this is the outline of the presentation. I'm going to present on a brief background of smart cities and microgrids, and I will give briefly on what is a smart grid, and I will discuss on the smart grids in the smart microgrids. In that, I will discuss what is the classification of microgrids based on the different aspects, what are the operating modes, and what are the different control objectives, and what are the different types of control employed in the smart microgrids. And after that, I will discuss on the what is the energy management of smart microgrids, how it helps to smart cities, and after that, I will give what are the different challenges and research directions. So when we are going for the smart city development, in which we will have the smart grid development, we also have the smart microgrid development. So coming to the smart cities and microgrids, when we are talking about smart cities, everything is smart. Like if you see the figure, we have the smart manufacturing, we have the smart government, we will have the smart mobility, Wi-Fi, we will have the smart and digital citizens, we will have the complete open data, and we will have the smart healthcare, we will have the smart farming, agriculture, smart buildings, smart grid energy utilities. We also have the smart transportation. So as we can see, smart microgrid comes in the smart grid, and smart grid comes in the smart city, and this is a hierarchy. So that I will give briefly on the smart city. After the smart grid, then I will discuss more on the smart microgrid. So as you can see in the figure, these are all interdependent relationships, everything, and we have the many components, and we can see that energy and power utilities are the major key role players in almost all of these things. So coming to the smart infrastructure, let us take an example like smart poles and smart wires. So when we have the smart poles, we will have the pole sensors on the smart poles. From that pole sensors, we can monitor what is the pole health. We can also monitor whether the pole is down or broken, and we can also monitor what is the weather data at that particular location. And coming to the smart wire controllers, with the help of the smart wire controllers, We can monitor what is the health condition of the line. We can also monitor what is the power flow, and we can also take the control of the power flow by monitoring the power flow through the lines. And next, coming to the smart mobility. In the smart mobility, we will have the smart electric vehicles. We will have the smart street lights. Coming to the smart street lights, by employing these smart street lights, we can have the street light control remotely by arranging the video cameras to these smart street lights. We can monitor the traffic and we can control the traffic remotely. And coming to the when we are having the audio sensors on these smart street lights, we can also whenever there are any accidents, we can those accidents can be audible with these audio sensors. We can also include the environmental sensors so that we can see what is the weather in that particular location. We can also see we can also include the motion sensor so that we can see we can monitor how the accidents are going to happen and what are the different motions are going to happen at that particular location. Coming to the smart EVs, EV charging stations, by employing these smart EVs and EV charging stations, we can connect these smart EVs to the smart grid, and so that whenever there is a peak demand in the power supply, in that case, we can take the grid to vehicle power transfer, and we can also these vehicles can all be connected to the home, and these are also can be connected to the charging stations located at the different locations like 100 meters or 500 meters far away. And we can also provide the smart EV charging stations at the different streets or the highways, so that if someone needs to charge their electric vehicle, they can go for the charging of the electric vehicle. So coming to the smart living, in the smart living, we will have mainly two things. One is home energy management, and the other one is home area networks. Coming to the home energy, these two mainly includes different devices like smart meters, like advanced metering infrastructure, and we can also control the home, and we can also control the building. We can also build home as one distributed energy resource or distributed distributed generation or the energy storage system. We can also have the control smart plugs. We can also have the control smart appliances. We can also have the pluggable EVs. Like this is the future, how we are moving from the conventional home to smart home. So which will be in which we will have the home energy management independently, and we also have the home area networks. And this can be act as a DER, this can be act as a power supply generation, this can be act as a controllable load. So likewise, we can go for the smart microgrid or smart grid implementation or the smart city implementation. And next, coming to the smart utility, let's see the microgrids. With the help of the microgrids, we can integrate the local generation. We will have the more reliability, more resiliency, and we can also operate in the islanding. When there is a failure in the grid, still we can supply the power to the critical loads. And we also have the customer choice, like whenever customers wants to receive the power with the lower prices, with the higher prices, with the lower power quality, higher power quality. So likewise, customer can have a choice having the power from the different distribution companies, and we will have the proper economic dispatch. We will have the demand response. So by using this smart utility, we are moving from the conventional grid to smart grid. So in the conventional grid, we will have only the central generation, and we have only the one-way power flow. So whereas when we are moving towards the smart grid, grid of the future, we will have the more sensors, we will have the information communication technology, we will have the advanced metering infrastructure, distributed energy resources, microgrids, electric vehicles, and moreover, we will have the multi-way power flow. It is not like one-way power flow. We will have like bidirectional power flow and multi-way power flow. So this is how the smart city, like how we are classifying the energy invention areas in the smart city. We mainly have the generation, storage, infrastructure, facilities, and transportation, mobility. So these three are mainly interrelated to the intelligence, communication, hardware. So this is the where we need to go for the energy intervention areas in the smart city. So these are the different advances in the transportation. I will discuss the generation, storage, and this communication, all these things while discussing on the smart microgrid. And coming to the smart transportation, advancements in the transportation and technologies, we will have I'm taking only the future electric vehicles like non-fossil fuel vehicle technologies. So in that we have the EVs, hybrid electric vehicles, hydrogen-based internal combustion engine, fuel cells, biofuel cells. So cost-wise, fuel cells are most costly, and biofuels are less costly, and electric vehicles and hybrid electric vehicles are medium cost. Hydrogen IC also. If you see the efficiency-wise, EVs have more than 50%, and hybrid electric vehicles have moderate efficiency. When you go for the commercial availability, electric vehicles and hybrid electric vehicles are currently available throughout the world. And coming to the hydrogen ICE, fuel cells, biofuels cells, these will be hydrogen ICE and fuel cells. These will be coming in next 1 to 2 years, 2 to 3 years. And biofuels also, nowadays some people are using the biofuels based transportation technologies. The main challenges when you go for the electric vehicles, the main thing is the chemical sustainability and the battery cost. With the same with the hybrid electric vehicles as well. So when we go for the hydrogen ICE fuel cells, it's mainly cost factor and the lack of the well-established infrastructure. And coming to the biofuels, it's mainly we need to have the responsible farming, and we should have the CO2 fixation. So coming to the energy system models in the smart city context, what are the inputs and what are the outputs when we are going to model the smart city, and what are the input parameters we need to take? So we have to take the parameters and the resource availability. We have to take what is the system cost, what is the geolocation characteristics, and what are the energy prices, what are the regulatory constraints, what is the energy demand. So these are the inputs to the model, and we will implement one of the optimization methodology, and from that we will get what is the installed capacity and what is the operation schedule or the total production, what is the total system cost, environmental benefits, and economic feasibility analysis. So this is how the smart city looks like. As I mentioned, smart grid is a part of the smart city, and in the smart city we will have a smart microgrid, we will have a smart grid, and we will have the smart city, like smart utilities, smart environment, smart homes, and smart government. So everything comes like we will have the recycling, we will have the smart energy, we will have the smart retail, we will have the IoT, Internet of Things, security, smart homes. So this is how it looks like smart city model. It is a combination of everything is a smart grid, smart microgrid, and we will have the districts, we will have the parking like residential tariff, we will have the smart electric vehicles, like we will have the metro stations in the smart city. So I'm discussing briefly on the smart grid. So conventional power grid will have only the power infrastructure. When we are integrating this conventional power system with information communication technology or intelligence infrastructure, it will move to smart grid. So as you can see in the upper, we have the power infrastructure or the electrical infrastructure. So in the down, we have the IoT, ICT infrastructure. So this can be by integrating ICT with the electrical infrastructure, we can have the smart grid infrastructure. So how the smart grid will help with that one? So the first one is it mainly improves the electrical power generation and distribution systems. How it improves means like integration of this electric infrastructure and ICT infrastructure, and we will have the more efficient, better managed power infrastructure. Likewise, we can monitor the power generation, we can monitor the transmission, distribution, all these things, so that we will have the better management of the power infrastructure. And by using this smart grid also, we will have the more integration of the renewable energy resources. Like we are going for the nowadays, we are going for the alternating energy resources like solar generation, wind power generation, and energy storage systems. So the mainly we need to match the supply and demand in order to reduce the power generation. When we are transmitting the power from the central power generation to the distribution, in between we will have the more transmission losses when we are taking the transferring of the bulk power generation to the distribution. However, when we are integrating these renewable energy sources at the distribution level, we can reduce the bulk power transmission losses. Those I will discuss in the microgrid. What are the benefits of the microgrid? And also we will have the better management of the energy usage, like in the smart grid, we are using the smart meters. We will have the demand response system. These will take care of the balance of the energy usage, and also it enables the usage of the plug-in electric vehicles, and we will have the more friendly environment. We will also have the more energy storage system integration. So this is how the conventional power system is operating. Like when we see the power infrastructure, we have the bulk generation, we have the transmission, we have the distribution customer, and coming to the management side, we have the market operation service provider. So with this smart grid, we are going for the high use of variable renewables, and we will also integrate the more distributed generation and microgrids, and we will also have the more smart meters and real-time usage of the data, and we will also have the bidirectional metering. Like we will also have the multi power flow in the smart grid, and we need to integrate the AMI smart meters, so in order to monitor that bidirectional power flow. And we will also have the distributed storage which are integrated at the distribution substations. And with this, we will also have the dynamic pricing, and we also have the smart appliances. Like as I mentioned, we will have the smart home and area management and home network management. And we also have the energy management system in this smart grid. We will also have the integration of the electric vehicles, and we will have many network sensors. It will appear everywhere, and so that we can monitor the each and every condition of the complete smart grid. So the standard is the main key. There are two things. One is the information, another one is the communication technology. As I mentioned, when we are integrating this ICT with the conventional power system, we will have the smart microgrid. So there are two things. One is the information, another one is the communication. So information is the foundation, and communication is the glue. So by having the information, we will have the better management of power infrastructure. When we go for the better management, it mainly requires we should have the accurate real-time and near real-time data. With this information, we can have the capacity management, energy market trading. These also things need more data for projection and prediction of the demand and supply. And we also have the interoperability, like we will have the ability to exchange the information between the different infrastructures. As I mentioned, communication is the main glue. Like we should have the how we can acquire the communication is like we should have the reliable network for meter and sensor data. We'll have the control and command on the complete smart grid. We need to have the standards for the device communication, for networking, and management of the smart grid networks. So I will discuss in the energy management strategy all these things. So this is how we are going for the smart grid standardization. The first thing is we have to go for the wide area situational awareness, and we should have the cyber security, and we should have the network communications. So we will have the advanced metering infrastructure. We will have the vehicle to grid integration. So this is about how we can go for the standardization of the smart grid. So now I am going to discuss completely on the microgrid, smart microgrid, and control of microgrids. What are the classification of the microgrids? How the energy management is going to take place in the microgrids? What is the real-time monitoring and control of the microgrids? So coming to the microgrids, as we know that microgrid is comprised of the low voltage, medium voltage distributed system. It will mainly have the distributed generation, distributed storage devices. It will have the critical loads, non-critical loads, communication, control, and automation systems. We will have the production. We will have the smart interconnected switches. So as you can see, it is like a one established small-scale power system which will have the complete control, complete communication, complete automation. So it can be operated either in the islanding mode or grid mode when we are taking the non-isolated microgrids. I will discuss in the coming slides. So this is one of the example of the microgrid. Like we will have the distributed generation. Each DC will have each DC or DER will have the local control, and we will have the one central control, that is the microgrid central controller, MGCC. And here we are implementing one communication protocol, that is IEC 61850. With that, we will have the communication between the MGCC and local control of each DER. And with that, we can have the communication with each local controller, and we can send the reference signals to the local controller. So these are the major components of the microgrid. When you see the major components, the main components are DER, distributed energy resources, loads, smart switches, production devices, master control, that is a MGCC, communication, component automation, what I mentioned in the definition. Coming to the DERs, DERs not only includes the distributed generation, it also includes the energy storage system, it also includes the responsive loads. And if you see the classification, in the DC technologies, we mainly have the renewable as well as non-renewable DC technologies. In the renewable DC technologies, we have the solar, wind, biomass, tidal wave, microhydro, and geothermal. Coming to the non-renewable one, we have the internal combustion based and external combustion based. Internal combustion, we have the reciprocating engines and combustion gas turbine, micro turbine. And coming to the distributed energy storage, we have the different types of storage like chemical storage, mechanical storage, electrical storage, and thermal storage, and electrochemical. So I will discuss these energy storage technologies detailed in the coming slides. So coming to the DCs, we have the two types of DCs. One is dispatchable, another one is non-dispatchable. So dispatchable means we can control the output of that one. Non-dispatchable means output cannot be controlled. Likewise, if you take the solar PV panels, if you take the wind power, so these are mainly intermittent, like these are mainly depending on the weather conditions, so that like we can control the output power, like those are like intermittent and volatile, like those are not constant. So with this intermittent behavior, in order to match the generation and the load, in order to maintain the balance between the generation and the load, we should have a energy storage system in the microgrids. So the main applications of the energy storage system are energy arbitrage, like charging the energy storage system with the low cost and discharging the energy storage system with the high cost, so that you can earn the more money. And we will have the frequency regulation, we will have the load leveling. Like with these two, I will discuss in the next slide. So coming to the most common distributed energy resources, like I have given some most common DERs. As you can see, we have the solar PV panels, we have the solar thermal collectors, we have the solar concentrated solar power, and we also have the solar PV and thermal combination. We have the wind power, we have the poly generation, like multiple generation, we have the biomass, we have the geothermal. So as you can see, common application I have divided into when we go for the smart city, where we can utilize this generation, like I have given household application, building application, district application, or power plant application. If you see the solar PV panels, we can go for the household or the building application. If you have the solar CSP, we can go with the entire large district or the power plant applications. So likewise, we can go for the different application. And if you see the efficiency wise high, when we go for the multiple generation, like a combination of solar wind or a combination of solar micro hydro or solar, any multiple combination, we will have the more efficiency. Otherwise, if you take any one of the single one, we will have the moderate efficiency. So coming to the microgrid loads, we have the two types of loads. So we are dividing like flexible and fixed loads and flexible loads. Fixed loads means these are the critical loads, like these are the uncontrollable loads which needs continuous power supply without any interruptions, like when we take the hospitals, when we are conducting some online exam in the campus, we need continuous power supply without any interruption. So in that case, we have the fixed loads. So coming to the flexible loads, these can be called as controllable or non-critical loads. Like these loads can be curtailed, these loads can be shiftable. Like when we have the more energy demand, when we have the lesser power generation, in that case, we can curtail these loads, so that we can call it as a flexible loads. So coming to the energy storage technologies, we have mainly mechanical, electrochemical storage, thermal storage, electrical, hydrogen-based storage, as I mentioned in the earlier slide. In the mechanical, we have the different types like pumped hydro energy storage, PHES. We have the gravity storage technologies. we have the CAES, we have the flywheels. The electrochemical, like it is combination of like electrical and chemical. Like we have the lead acid batteries, lithium-ion batteries, flow batteries, high temperature batteries, zinc batteries. So in the thermal, it is mainly thermochemical storage, and coming to the pure electrical, we have the supercapacitors and SMES. Coming to the hydrogen-based one, we have the fuel cells. So these are the energy storage technologies, timescales I am giving, like in which type of applications we can utilize. If it is a short time scale, we can utilize the flywheels, supercapacitors, SMES, and if it is a medium time scale applications, we can go for the flow batteries and batteries. If it is a long term applications, like we can go with the pumped hydro, like mechanical storage, like pumped hydro and CAES and energy storage. So here I am giving like what are the different applications, like when we are going for the bulk power management, when we are going for the transmission and distribution support, load shifting, when we are going for the UPS power quality. So I'm giving here between discharge time rate, whatever I mentioned the time scale earlier, and here I'm giving the system power ratings, like module size. If it is for UPS, uninterrupted power supply or the power quality applications, if it is discharge time is very less, then we can go for the high power flywheels, high power supercapacitors. So likewise, if it is a bulk power management, and if it is a longer time duration of the discharge time rate, and if it is in the range of 100 megawatts to 1 gigawatts, so in that case, we have to go with the pumped hydro storage or the compressed air energy storage. So as you can see, bulk power management comes under the, when we are going for the smart city implementation. T&D, grid support, load shifting, these comes under the smart grid development, and UPS power quality, these comes under the smart microgrid applications. So these are the different common electric storage technologies. I have given battery, different types of battery technologies, like lead acid batteries, lithium ion batteries, nickel cadmium batteries, and we also have the SMES, flywheel, supercapacitors, CAs, hydroelectric. And if you see the price wise, I have given the comparison price wise, what is the efficiency wise, what is the power density or energy density wise, so how the response time, what is the cycle life in times, and what are the different applications. Here you can see I have given the bulk storage applications, distributed generation storage applications, and power quality storage applications. So these I have given in the table format, whatever I have discussed in the earlier 2 slides. So as you can see, when we go for the response time, for the faster response time, we have to go with the supercapacitors, flywheels, and SMES. And if it is a medium response time, we can go with the any battery technologies like lead acid, nickel cadmium, or lithium ion. So likewise, you can see the efficiency wise as well. SMES has the efficiency of more larger efficiency, like 95 to 98 percentage, and after that, flywheels have the 95 percentage, supercapacitors have the 95 percentage, and coming to the lithium ion batteries, they have the efficiency 85 to 99 percentage. Likewise, we can compare these different technologies, and we can go for the whatever the application requirement, what is the price, and what is the energy or the power density, what is the response time we require. So likewise, we can decide the which energy storage technology we should go with that particular application. So this is the energy storage application. As I mentioned, we are mainly utilizing in frequency regulation and load leveling. I hope many of us know that how the frequency deviation and power balance relates. When we have the generation less than the demand, we will have the lower frequency than the rated frequency. When we have the more power generation than the demand, we will have the greater frequency than the rated frequency. When we have the more power generation, we can utilize that power to the charging the energy storage technology, energy storage system. When we have the lesser power generation, the more power demand. So in that case, we can discharge the batteries. Likewise, we can go for the frequency regulation. So load leveling also same likewise, like when we have the larger load demand, we can go for the discharging. When we have the lesser load demand, we can go for the charging of the batteries. So next components, we also have the smart switches and production devices in the microgrid. Smart switches mainly manage the connection between the DGRs and the loads in the microgrid by connecting, disconnecting the line flows. In case of the any fault, we need to separate, we need to isolate the microgrid from the main grid so that we can protect the microgrid from the smart grid failure. and also we can utilize for the starting purpose. And also when we see the feature the PCC, it's mainly perform the more transition between the islanding mode to grid connector mode, grid connector mode to islanding mode. So likewise, we can take the connection and disconnection of the switches. And next, we will have the master controller, that is a microgrid central controller. So it mainly performs the scheduling of the microgrid in the grid connector mode, and also it considers what is the economic and security constraints in the islanding mode of operation. It also determines the interaction between the main grid and utility grid. It will receive the what are the reference signals from the main grid or the utility operator. So based on that, it will send the signals to the local control, and local control implement that particular references from the main grid, and so that we can maintain the stability within the microgrid. It will also take the decision when to switch the grid control mode, when to switch the islanding modes. It also manages the what is the optimal operation of all the resources, like when we need to switch on the DERs, when we need to switch on the loads, or when we need to switch on the energy storage systems. Likewise, it also manages all the things. The other components, like as I mentioned, communications, control and automation. So all these things are required to implement the control actions. We need to ensure the reliable interaction among the microgrid components. We need to ensure the reliable operation of the microgrid. For that, we need communication. We also need the control and automation within the microgrid. So these are the different benefits of the microgrid when we are going to implement the microgrids at the distribution levels. It's mainly when we are mainly focusing on the integration of the renewable energy sources, so that we can reduce the greenhouse gas emission. We are mainly integrating at the distribution stations, so we can reduce the transmission losses, and we can have the improved reliability. Likewise, as I mentioned, when there is a failure in the grid, we can isolate the microgrid from the grid, and still so that we can have the self-healing capability at the local distribution network. We will have the better power quality by managing the flexible and non-flexible loads. We also have the higher flexibility, controllability, efficiency of the operation, since we have the decentralized microgrid, like microgrid located at the decentralized location. We also have the bidirectional power flow between the utility grid and main grid in the grid mode of operation. We can also supply the continuous power supply without any interruption to the mainly critical loads like hospitals, whenever we have the loads which needs the continuous power supply. As I mentioned, in case of any grid failures, like in case of any voltage fluctuations, in case of any upstream disturbances, so we can disconnect the microgrid from the utility grid, and still you can supply the power to the critical loads. So these are the different classification of the microgrids. Classification is mainly based on the location, based on the application, based on the distribution system. Based on the location, we are mainly classifying as urban microgrids, remote microgrids, based on the distribution system, how the power is transmitting, like AC microgrid, DC microgrid, hybrid AC-DC microgrid. Based on the application, coming to the power type, we have the AC type, DC type. Coming to supervised control, whether it is centralized control, decentralized control, hierarchical control, or distributed control. Likewise, we will have the different supervised control based one. And we also have the operation modes, whether it is operating in the grid mode of operation or the islanding mode of operation. Coming to the phase, if it is the single phase or the three-phase microgrids. Coming to the application, whether we are utilizing in the residential application or the utility application. So likewise, we have the different classification of the microgrids. So coming to the AC microgrids, DC microgrids, and hybrid AC-DC microgrids, the main classification. So as you can see, AC microgrids means like we have the common AC bus in the AC microgrid, we have the common DC bus in the DC microgrid. So like when we have the common AC bus, whether the generation is DC based generation or the AC based generation, we need to connect to the AC bus for that one. If it is the photovoltaic panels, we have the DC power, we need to interface with the DC AC. If it is a variable AC of the wind turbine, we need to interface with the AC-AC converter. If it is energy storage, we need to interface with the DC AC. Coming to the loads also, if it is a DC load, we have to interface with the AC-DC converter. If it is a AC load, variable AC load with other frequency, with other voltage, we have to go with the AC-AC converter. So likewise also we have the DC-DC microgrid as well, like we have the common DC bus, and we have to connect all the generation, all the loads to that common DC bus. Here the main thing is like as you can see, we have the multiple power conversion. Suppose when you take the power transfer from the photovoltaic panels to the DC load, so originally photovoltaic panels provides the DC power supply and we have the DC load. However, in between we have the DC AC power conversion, AC DC power conversion. So that means it mainly AC microgrids and DC microgrids. So these two mainly involves the multiple multiple power transfer levels. So in order to reduce these losses, we have gone through the hybrid AC/DC microgrid. So what we are doing is power generation, which is provides the DC power. So we are connected to the DC bus. Load which requires the DC power, DC voltage, that we are connected to the DC bus, and likewise generation loads which needs the AC power, we are connected to the AC bus. In between, we will have the bidirectional AC/DC converter. We are having the main as well as backup converter. So when there is in the failure in the main converter, still we can operate with the backup converter in order to improve the reliability and power supply to the critical loads. The another classification is we have the isolated microgrids and non-isolated microgrids. So non-isolated microgrid means so these are integrated at the distribution substations. Like we will have the point of common coupling, and we will have the microgrid, and we will have the utility grid connection. In between, we will have the transfer switch. Like we can operate grid connected mode or islanding mode, or mode transfer from the grid connected to islanding mode, or islanding mode to grid mode. So these can be integrated at the any distribution substation needed to the distribution substation. However, we have some remote areas which are located far away from the distribution substation or the transmission substations. So those remote areas, we cannot provide the transmission lines or the distribution lines for that remote areas, since we have the few number of customers and we cannot invest more amount for those remote area customers. So in that case, we can go for the implementation of isolated microgrid. Like we will establish one microgrid, whatever the generation is available, like solar PV is available, wind power is available. Like we will have the integration of the batteries. We also have the emergency diesel generator, and we can supply the power to those remote areas. So this is the what current we are currently working with the Ampere Hour solar technology. We are mainly supplying the power to the remote areas in the India with the help of the government of India. So coming to the operation modes, we have the non-isolated microgrids. When we see the non-isolated microgrids, as I mentioned, we will have the three modes, like mainly two modes. One is the grid connector mode, another one is the islanding mode. We also have the mode transferring between the grid mode to islanding mode. So grid mode to islanding mode transfer, it can be either intentional or the unintentional islanding. Intentional means when there is some grid failure, we will open the switch between the microgrid and the point of common coupling. So unintentional means we don't know, maybe it is not the expected one, it is not the guess one, and we should implement the automatically opening of that smart switch when there is some failure in the main grid. Coming to the control and the grid connector mode, in that case, entire microgrid will be acting as a controllable source of the load, and all components will follow the same commands given by the utility grid. Coming to the islanding mode, at least one or any group of the DAS would provide the voltage and reference signals to the other generators. In that way, we should mainly take care of the load tracking, load management, load shedding, and we also have the transient stability problems, like it's mainly small scale power system network, and even small change in the load will cause the transient stability issues. Coming to the control of the non-isolated microgrids, as I mentioned, in the grid connected mode of operation, we will have the active and reactive power flow control. And reactive power flow control, it can be done with the constant power factor, it can be done with the fixed reactive power, it can be done with the reactive power as a function of the active power, reactive power as a function of the voltage, reactive power as a function of the active power and voltage at the same time. We need to take care of the control of the internal resources in order to achieve those objectives. So coming to the control of the isolated microgrid. So some people may think of that non-isolated microgrid in the islanding mode of operation is same as the isolated microgrid control. So these are the those differences I will show here. So when we take the steady state control of the isolated microgrid, it is might be different. It is still bit different from the what is the control of the islanding mode of the non-isolated microgrid. So in the isolated microgrid, the ratio of the electrical energy storage capacity to the total of the other DER capacity is different, and it is mainly larger than the as compared in the islanding mode of the non-isolated microgrid. And also when we see the isolated microgrid, if it is a if it is a non-isolated one, so when there is some problem in the microgrid, we can simply have the power from the grid and we can maintain the power quality. However, there won't be any grid mode of operation connection in isolated microgrid. So in that case, we should take care of the power quality, maintaining the power quality in the isolated microgrid. It is different from the islanding mode of the operation of the isolated islanding mode of operation of the non-isolated microgrid. And also when we see the isolated microgrid, it mainly works currently in a self-sustained and independent way based on the load requirements. So while the non-isolated one, it is need to be operated only in the limited duration. Like you will have the option like if there is any problem in the microgrid generation, still you can supply the power to the loads by taking the power from the main grid. But it is not possible in the isolated microgrids. So that is the reason why the control of the isolated microgrid is different from the islanding mode of operation of the non-isolated one. It is more critical than the islanding mode control of the non-isolated microgrid. From the control point of view also, when we see the voltage and frequency control strategies, these are also different from that islanding mode of operation of the non-isolated microgrid. So these are the main differences. Like when we say that the islanding mode of operation of the microgrid, the control is different, and the control of the isolated microgrids is different. So these are the different factors, how they are different in the different aspects, like control point of view, like power quality point of view, what is the ratio of the electrical energy storage to the total other DER capacity. Like we have the different aspects. So coming to the control hierarchy in the microgrids, we have the different levels of the control, like primary control, secondary level control, tertiary level control. So the primary level control, we have the local control, like we will have the voltage and current control, we will have the power sharing control or the active and reactive power control. So in the secondary level control, it is upon the primary level control, we have the power quality control, we have the voltage frequency restoration, we have the power flow or synchronization control with the main grid. In the tertiary level control, it is upon the secondary level. It's mainly responsible for economic dispatch and operation, microgrid supervision, and generation forecasting. So these control levels are differ in what is the speed of the response, what is the time frame in which they are operating. They are also differ in the what is the requirement of the communication infrastructure requirement. So let us take example primary level control. These are the faster than the secondary level control, and secondary level control is slower than the primary level control. Secondary level control is faster than the tertiary level control and slower than the primary level control. So likewise, these are different in the speed response and the time frame. Like if you see the primary level control, so we need to take the action in milliseconds or 2 tenths of milliseconds range. When we go for the secondary level control, we need to take the actions in milliseconds to seconds. When we take the tertiary level control, it will take the action in minutes to fraction of hours. And coming to the communication infrastructure, primary level control doesn't need any much more established communication infrastructure, since all are based on the local measurements. But coming to the secondary level control, it needs some medium level communication infrastructure, and tertiary level, it is upon the secondary and primary level, it needs more well-established communication infrastructure. So coming to the microgrids control, this is the general architecture when we are taking the multiple microgrids. Like as I mentioned, like we have the primary control, secondary control, tertiary control. So tertiary control is responsible for multi-microgrid control, and secondary control is responsible for particular microgrid control. And these are the different microgrid control levels. We have the 4 levels: level 0, level 1, level 2, level 3. So level 0 is inner control loop, like we have the current control, output voltage control, feedback and feed forward compensators. We have the linear, non-linear controls. In the local control, we need to control the frequency and voltage. We need to control the power and active power and reactive power. So in that, if it is the island mode of operation, we should go for the droop control like PF or QV control. We may go for the virtual impedance applied to the generator reference level. In the secondary level, it's mainly MQCC will communicate with the local control of all the DERs, and it will provide the reference to all the local control. In the global control, it mainly manages the multiple MGs, like between, it mainly provides the communication between the communication among the multiple microgrids, and also it provides the reference signals to the other microgrids based on the reference signals getting from the utility, power system utility. So these are the level 0 inner control loop, like a different, like we have many inner control loops. I'm just providing some few for our reference, like I'm providing the synchronous frame VOC, stationary frame VOC, and PQ calculators and the PLL logic loop, like ABCD DQ transformation or ABCD alpha beta control, depending on the what type of inner control loop we are employing in the local control of the microgrid. And coming to the primary or local control, as I mentioned, when there is some small load disturbances, we need to match the generation and the load. For that, we are implementing the droop control, PF droop and QV droop control, like in the conventional power system synchronous generation. So here I am giving the PF and QV droop, and I think we all know what is the PF and QV droop, and I don't take much more time on this. And this is on the right side. I have given the example, like we have the frequency bands, we have the lower and upper limits of the frequency. So likewise, we have to modify the frequency droop values, and we have to modify the power generation from the different generators based on the load demand. This is how energy manager provides take the droop selection. It will take the droop stability analysis, and from that he will dispatch the droop gains to all the DGs, and he will take the optimization of the generator dispatch, depending on what is the power generation inside the microgrid, what is the total demand in the microgrid. So this is when we go for the primary local control, droop control, that doesn't require any communication like ICT communication. But when we go for the more, it requires the partial communication. But when we go for the more communication-based primary level control loop, in that case, we can go for the master-slave control. Like one DC will be act as a master one, and another DCs will be act as a slave one. That means master one would provide the voltage and frequency references to the slave inverters, and slave inverter simply follows that, take that voltage and frequency references, they simply follow what are the active and reactive power references given by the master inverter controller. And coming to the secondary level control loop, when there are any frequency deviations or the voltage deviations, when the primary level control couldn't able to minimize those frequency and voltage deviations, so in that case, secondary loop control will come into the action, and it will minimize the frequency and the voltage deviations by taking what is the reference frequency value, what is the actual frequency value of the microgrid, and that will be passing through the PI controller. It will provide what is the deviation of the frequency we should add with that PQ droop control or the PF droop control or the QV droop control. So this is how the secondary control loop will take the actions on the local or the primary control loop. So coming to the secondary level control, we have the different architectures for the secondary level control loop. Like we have the decentralized control, we have the centralized control, we have the distributed control, we have the hierarchical control. I will give briefly on how these things looks like. So in the decentralized control, as you can see, every primary control loop of the DC will have the separate secondary control loop. So this is what it is, decentralized control loop. So as you can see, there is no communication between the secondary level control loop of all the primary level control loop. They are only communicating with their respective primary control loop. So this is the main drawback. This will causes the lack of uniformity, lack of consistency, and it will causes the lack of coordination among the IADC units. But however, it is simple control. It is simply based on the local measurements. You don't need any communication. But still, it suffers from the lack of uniformity, lack of consistency, and lack of coordination among all the IADC units. So coming to the centralized control of the microgrids, as you can see, we have the primary control of all the DC units. We have the one common secondary level control loop. So in between, we have the communication infrastructure. This secondary level control loop will communicate with all the primary level control loops, and it will provide the voltage and frequency deviation signals for which they have to modify. So that will be given to through the communication infrastructure. So as you can see, we have the only one secondary level control loop. We have all the primary level control loop. In between, we have the communication infrastructure. If there is any failure of this communication infrastructure, there won't be any communication between this secondary level control loop and primary level control loop. So that is the main drawback of this secondary level control loop, like single point failure. Like if once the communication infrastructure got failed, there won't be any communication between the secondary level control loop and primary level control loop. So as you can see, we have some advantages, drawbacks with the decentralized control loop. We have some advantages, drawbacks with the centralized control loop. So by combining this decentralized and centralized, we can have the more advantages and we can reduce those drawbacks. So this is what it is called as a hierarchical level control loop. As you can see, every DC will have their own secondary level control loop, and we will have the centralized secondary level control loop. We will have the communication infrastructure between that centralized secondary level control loop and the decentralized level secondary level control loop. Even if there is any failure of the communication infrastructure, still secondary level control loop at that above the primary level control loop will take the actions, and it will provide the minimum stability of the microgrid. So this is the distributed control loop, control of the microgrids. It is completely based on the well infrastructure communication. Like as you can see, there is a communication between all the secondary level control loops. Like we have the transceivers, we have the receivers. So they will communicate each other, and they will take the control actions based on their communication, based on the requirements of the other secondary level control loops, other primary level control loops. So this is about the secondary level control, different secondary level control loop: decentralized, centralized, hierarchical, and distributed control. So we can go for any implementation of the control based on our requirement. Suppose if we have if you want to have a more well infrastructure, information communication technology, if you want to implement more ICT, then you can go for the distributed control. You can also go for the hierarchical distributed control if you invest the more amount. And if you want the more smart microgrid, we can go for the hierarchical distributed control of the microgrids. And this is one of the challenging research area in the control of the microgrids, that is the hierarchical distributed control of the microgrids, like combining the hierarchical control and combining the distributed control of the microgrids. So this is the main control which requires for the smart microgrids implementation. And next, I'm discussing on the global control loop. As I mentioned, global control loop is responsible for communicating with the other microgrids, secondary level control loop, and it will provide what are the active power references, what are the reactive power references, what is the actual power generation from that entire microgrid, what is the reactive power generation, and how much it has to generate. So likewise, we will provide the control signals to the one microgrid from the other microgrids. And in this, microgrid operating manager plays an important role to provide all the active power and reactive power references in this global control loop. Like when we are implementing the smart grid, when we have the multiple numbers of the smart microgrids, in that definitely we have to go for the implementation of this global control loop. So next I am discussing on the energy management strategy. So far I have discussed on the what are the different control, what is the classification, what is the microgrid. And now I'm going to discuss on how the energy management strategy is going to be implemented in the microgrids. So as you can see, what are the main inputs is like we should have the load forecasting, we will have the variable resources, we will have the energy policies. So these are the inputs to the energy management, and based on that we need to establish what is the energy import or the export from the different dispatchable distributed energy resources or different controllable loads based on their what is the present, what is the forecasted information of the market, what is the generation and the loads in order to meet the different objectives. Particularly the main thing is we are going to minimize the cost of the operation so that we will have the more money. At the end of the day, we need to minimize the cost of the operation, and for that we have to take the generation dispatch, and we have to take the when we need to switch on the controllable loads, when we need to switch off the controllable loads, and we have to go for the DER control, we have to go for the demand side management, we have to go for the energy import and export. So this is how the energy management strategy is working on the any conventional power system network or the smart microgrid or the smart grid. So this is a diagram which shows that we have the grid side and we have the customer side. In the grid side, we have the different utilities, we have the weather forecast, and we have the third-party service provider who provides the other information, and we will have the interface between this grid side operators and the microgrid EMS. We also have the interface with the customer side, like we have the distributed generation, we have the distributed battery storage technologies, we have the electric vehicles. So this microgrid EMS will interface with the grid side components and the customer side components, and they will take the 4 functional functions. One is the forecast, another one is the optimization, another one is the data analysis, and fourth one is the human machine interface. So these are the 4 main functional requirements for the microgrid EMS. So microgrid EMS mainly monitors and controls the what is the DERs and the loads for the optimal operation. Optimal operation means at the end of the day, we need to minimize the cost of the operation. It also interacts with all the DERs, it also interacts with the loads as well as the external system utility information and weather forecasting, like when we are integrating the solar PV panels, when we are integrating the wind turbines, we should have the weather forecasting, like we should have the forecast for the solar irradiation, we should have the forecasting for the what is the speed of the wind for the next few days or the few hours. So likewise, we should have the forecast of all these things. So coming to the functional requirements, I will discuss one by one, like what is the forecast, what is the optimization, data analysis, HMI. So coming to the functional requirements, coming to the forecast, in the forecast, the EMS energy management system mainly uses the what is the historical data and what are the other inputs. Other inputs like weather, it's mainly to forecast what is the power generation from the DERs and how much power we need to generate from the DERs, how we can schedule the DERs for that to match with the load demand, and what is the to match with the market requirements. So all these things, it will go for the forecasting of this weather, forecasting of the we will use the what is the historical data, previous what is the load previous data of the load, previous data of the generation, previous data of the market operations. It will take all the data and it will take the actions based on to minimize the cost of the operation. It will also the forecast is mainly performed on the different time scales. As I mentioned, we can go for the day-ahead forecasting, we can go for the hourly-ahead forecasting. Like as in conventional power system, we have the short-term forecasting, medium-term forecasting, long-term forecasting. So whatever is the requirement, we can go for the short-term means minutes to hours forecasting, or medium-term forecasting means day-ahead forecasting, or number of day-ahead forecasting, and long-term forecasting means it is like months to years forecasting. So likewise, we will perform this forecasting at different time scales. And next, we will utilize this forecasting data mainly for the optimization purpose. As I mentioned, we have to minimize the cost of the operation. So we will utilize this data, and we will have all these constraints in the optimization problem. We will formulate the optimization problem, and we will solve that optimization problem with different optimization techniques that I will discuss in the coming slides. So that means like the main accuracy of the forecasting, it's mainly depending on the main the optimization depending on the forecasting. So the accuracy of the forecast is the key factor for the microgrid EMS to balance the supply and demand in the microgrid. And also one more thing is in the conventional power system, like what we are forecasting is we are just forecasting what is the generation, what is the load demand based on historical data. However, when we go for the microgrid implementation, when we go for the solar PV panels integration or wind power integration, these are mainly variable and intermittent sources. Whatever you are forecasting for the today, it will change for the tomorrow. Whatever you are taking for the long-term forecasting, it will change for the after a few months. So that was the reason why I mentioned only the short term and medium term forecasting. We cannot go for the long term forecasting with these variable intermittent energy resources like solar PV panels, wind turbines. So that's the reason we can go with the hourly head forecasting. We can go with the day head forecasting. Since we have the, like when we go for the integration of the electric vehicles, there is a lot of uncertainties in this with these electric vehicles integration. So these are the different things like we have the spatial related to the space, we have the temporal issues, like we have the different factors why the forecasting is the challenging thing, and it is one of the challenging research area where we can work on the microgrid, like forecasting for the microgrid implementation of the microgrid EMS. So there are different forecasting methods which have been proposed in the literature. We have the like classical methods, we have the artificial intelligence based methods, we have the dynamic methods. So likewise, we have the different methods that we can see in the literature, and we can go for the what are the advantages, what are the drawbacks, how we can improve this forecasting with these intermittent energy resources. Next functional requirement is, as I mentioned, the optimization. After the weather forecast, after the forecast data, it will give to the optimization. So this optimization will help in the EMS. EMS must be able to take the control decisions. Like we need to optimize we need to minimize the cost of the operation of the microgrids. That means we need to optimize the power flows in the microgrid by adjusting the dispatchable DERs, by adjusting the controllable loads, by adjusting the what is the power imported, what is the power imported from the microgrid and exported to the grid. So likewise, we need to minimize the cost of the operation. So for that, we need to formulate the optimization problem, we need to solve the optimization problem, and based on that, we need to implement the optimization. So we have the different optimizations which are performed on the different applications like energy power management, demand response, coordinated EV charging. We have the vehicle to grid integration. Like we have the different applications in the smart microgrid and smart grid, and we need to utilize different optimization techniques for that particular application, since we cannot utilize one optimization technique for all the problems. So these are mainly optimization problems are typically formulated as a nonlinear optimization problems. As you can see, it involves many nonlinear parameters with different objectives. So definitely we have to go for the nonlinear optimization. We have the many extensive algorithms in the conventional power system for the energy and power management. Those I will show in the coming slide. So these are the different optimization techniques. Like we have the classical optimization techniques, we have the dynamic programming based optimization techniques, so we have the meta-heuristic approaches, we have the artificial intelligence based approaches, we also have the other approaches like PSO based one. So these are the different methodologies, like based on the different optimization techniques, we will have the different microgrid energy management system methodologies. Like we are mainly classifying into mixed integer programming optimization technique, dynamic programming, nonlinear programming, stochastic, artificial intelligence. In the mixed integer, we have the integer linear programming, non-integer linear programming, nonlinear programming, and we also have the quadratic programming. Coming to the artificial intelligence, we have the different techniques like genetic algorithms, particle swarm optimization, like meta-heuristic algorithms. We have the fuzzy logic, neural networks. So we have the different methods, and we have to implement. We have to see that which algorithm is providing the best results, and we cannot generalize the one optimization algorithm for all the applications. Based on the application, based on the requirement, based on the what are the components inside the smart microgrid or the smart grid. Based on that, we have to go for the different methodologies, different optimization techniques, which provides a better result. So these are the comparative analysis I'm giving, like whatever the methods we have, the optimization techniques. As I mentioned, we have the linear program, mixed integer linear programming, mixed integer nonlinear programming, dynamic programming, genetic algorithms, particle swarm optimization based one, and PSO1, neural networks, fuzzy logic. So every method will have their own advantages, will have their own disadvantages, and we have to see that which optimization technique is providing the better result for that particular problem based on their advantages, and we have to see that what are the issues with that particular optimization technique based on their disadvantages. So these are the different advantages, disadvantages. So likewise, if you see for the neural networks, it is mainly utilized in the situations where quick evaluation of the learner target function is necessary. However, it is mainly suffers from the high computational power requirement. Like every automation technique will have their own advantages, will have their own disadvantages. These are all algorithms which we have been utilizing in the conventional power system applications. We are utilizing in the other applications. I hope many people knows the what are the advantages, what are the drawbacks of all these automation techniques. So I'm not going to discuss much more on this. Just I'm giving briefly what is the comparative analysis. So coming to the another functional requirements, as I mentioned, we have the four functional requirements. One is the forecast, another one is the optimization, and third one is the data analysis, and fourth one is the human-machine interface. So earlier I discussed forecast and I discussed optimization techniques, and here I am discussing the remaining two like data analysis and the human-machine interface. So coming to the data analysis, we are having the thousands of number of smart meters, and we are collecting the large huge amount of the data. So we need to analyze the data from the different components of the smart meter grid like DERs, loads, what are the different market parameters, and we need to understand by analyzing this data. We need to understand what is the behavior, what is the characteristics of the different energy resources, different loads, and different market parameters. And based on this analysis, we can utilize this analysis to improve further the performance of the forecast, the performance of the automation tools. So all these are interlinked, like forecasting, optimization, and data analysis. So after doing the forecasting, after doing the optimization, we will have the complete data, and then we need to analyze the data. So when we can utilize that analyzation for improving the forecasting methods, for improving the optimization methods. And fourth one, we have the human-machine interface. Definitely, we should need a HMI. EMS must be provided with the HMI, mainly for real-time monitoring and control of the microgrid. By sitting at the control center, you can take the real-time monitoring and you can take the remote control by having the HMI. This mainly interfaces microgrid operator. As I mentioned, the person who is sitting at the control center, he is a microgrid operator. He will interact with all the other modules, all the grid side modules and customer side modules. Grid side will have the weather forecasting person. We will have the different other utilities. We will have in the customer side. We have the different distributed generations. We have the different energy storage technologies. We need to communicate with all the devices, all the operators. So for that, we need the one HMI to communicate with all the people. And moreover, furthermore, the main thing is we will have the huge amount of the data. So in that, we should provide the useful information rather than the raw data. It's mainly when you provide the TB of the data. In the TB of the data, we may have some unuseful data. We may have some useful data. So by the person who is sitting at the HMI control center, he has to take the raw amount of data and he has to analyze the data and he has to utilize the data. He has to provide the data, which one is the useful and which one is the non-useful. He has to provide the useful data mainly for the data visualization, data achieving, or the remote control centers. We have to give, after analyzing this data, we can provide the reference signals to the lower level operators. And moreover, that HMI should also allow more customer interactions so that we will have more coordination between all the grid side members and the customer side members. So we have, for implementing all these things, we must have a unified communication interface. So there are mainly, as you can see in the diagram, we have the connection interface and we have the device interface. And the connection interface, we have the gateway. The device interface, it mainly provides what is the status of the device, what are the different measurements, how we can take the control, what is the history. So there are mainly two types of the interfaces. One is the connection management, and the other one is the device management. So in the connection interfaces, mainly it manages the connection with the device or the gateway. So it is typically used in the when there is a long connection is required, and when we are talking about the long connection, it mainly provides with the established communication. Coming to the device interfaces, it mainly manages the communication with the device. So here I am giving the four. There are four types of device interfaces that must be implemented. So as I mentioned, we have the status, measurement, control, history. So coming to the status interface, it mainly provides what is the current status associated with the what is the system status, what is the mode of operation, what is the state of the charge, what is the inverter, whether it is in the on condition, whether it is in the off condition, whether it is in the standalone condition. So likewise, we need the status of that particular device. For that, we should have a status interface, and next we have the measurement interface that mainly provides the what are the current measures, what are the voltage measures, what is the power frequency, power factor, like whatever the measurements we need, we should have the measurement interface so that we can have all the measurements from the microgrid and main grid. And next we will have the control interface. It mainly provides based on the measurements, based on the status, it provides signals to the device, like whether it need to be turning on, turning off. It has to be setting the values, reference values. Like we should have the control interface. After that, we have the history interface. Like from this history interface, we will have the historical data. Like suppose when we are charging or discharging any energy storage system, what is the charging pattern of particular energy storage system for an entire day? What is the discharging pattern? So based on that, we can improve our forecasting, we can improve our optimization tools, so we can improve our data analysis. So for that, we need the history interface. So for all these things, we definitely need we have the different interfaces like status interface, measurement interface, and control interface, and device control interface, history interface. We have the different measurements, different interfaces. So we need to bring all these things into the one platform. Like we need to provide we will have the different supported devices for all these interfaces, and we need to bring all these things into the common platform. So for that, what we are doing is we are implementing some industrial protocols and standards that mainly includes IEC 61850. It is mainly for communication, automation and communication of substations like DER devices. We have a device language message specification. It is mainly for the smart meters. We have the standard protocol for the heating, ventilation like HVAC control. That is a BACnet. It is full form as a building automation and control network. And for other things like building automation, other protocols like different vendors. Like as you can see, we have the different protocols for the DER devices. We have the different protocol for the smart meters, different protocol for the lighting, different protocol for the HVAC control. So for all, we have the different vendors and different protocols, and we need to bring all into the one platform. And for that, we may go for the open building information exchange. With that, we can bring all the devices into the single platform interface. So by using this, we can manage all the devices without depending on any particular protocols, any technologies, and we can simply go for the common interface, and we can go for the common interface control of all the different devices, different smart meters, lighting or HVAC control, all the other components, other devices, other connections existing in the smart microgrid. So this is how the implementation of the microgrid EMS looks like. As you can see, whatever I mentioned in the earlier slide, we have the market information, we have the weather forecast, we have the other parameters. In that, we have the microgrid energy management, we have the customer side, we have smart submeters, smart appliances, electric vehicles, photovoltaic panels, battery energy storage. In the forecast, we have to forecast the DER load, we have to forecast the market parameters. In the optimization, we have the energy scheduling, we have the demand response. So in the data analysis, we have the forecasted data, and we need to I have the historical data in the human machine interface. What we are doing is we are visualizing all the data, and based on that, we are taking the real-time control. So this is how the implementation of the microgrid EMS looks like in the decentralized system architecture. Like as you can see, we have the different devices, we have the different communication protocols, and all these things are coming under the one common platform. With that common platform, we are communicating with the demand response automated servers. We are communicating with the central controller. We are communicating with the control director. As you can see in the lower level, we have the solar PV panels, different DERs, we have the different smart meters, we have the different HVAC control parameters, we have the different devices. All these comes under comes to the common communication interface, and from that we will interface with the DRAS, microgrid center controller and control director, and we can also go for the coordination of all these things by taking the energy service module, by implementing one database of all these things. So system operator will take all these things like energy service module, database, common communication interface. So this is how microgrid real-time control looks like. We have the 4 layers. One is the operation layer, another one is the energy management layer, another one is the prediction layer, and on the top of all these things, we have the human machine interface layer. So as I will discuss here briefly, like how this looks like. If you see the operation layer, it's mainly responsible for operation of all the components in the smart microgrid. The response time would be less than seconds, like in the milliseconds. When we go for the energy management, we will have the messages from the smart grid, and those will be implemented. Those will be sent to the local control or local secondary control of the microgrids or the local control of the DER units, and the response time would be in the minutes. Like these are the different in the, as I mentioned, like different control levels. These are different in the communication infrastructure. These are different in the response time. And if you see the prediction layer, so in that we need to predict the weather data. We need to go for the forecasting of the weather data. We need to predict the when we need to go for the load. We need to go for the generation scheduling. We need to go for the load scheduling. We need to implement the what are the loads should be shedding. Like we will have the different predictions at this prediction layer. The response time would be in the hours. So on the top of all these things, we have the human machine interface layer, where we are taking the operation criteria, we are taking the building criteria appliances, we are taking all the, like he is taking care of all the layers, like prediction layer, energy management layer, operation layer, and based on that he will take the actions. And that was the reason the response time of the HMI would be in the days. Like these are the, he has to communicate with the end user demand, and he has to take all the actions with the prediction layer, energy management layer, and operation layer. So this is how we are going to implement that microgrid real-time control. Likewise, you can see, like whatever I mentioned in the operation layer, we have all the microgrid physical components, and after that we have the energy management layer, like we have the automation algorithms, we have the forecasting and estimation, we have the data analysis, we have the upon that we have the HMI, and we will take the prediction of the what is the local load power. We will take the load forecasting, and from that we will take the generation scheduling. So likewise, what we are doing in the conventional power system large network, same thing we are doing with the small microgrid networks and smart microgrid networks. So the thing is, we are implementing all this with ICT thing, and we can go for the remote control and IoT based control. So these are the different simulation softwares and tools which are used in the management of the microgrids, depending on the what type of network we are working, what type of language we are working. As you can see, we have the different tools like PSCAD, EMPDC, we have the MATLAB Simulink, MATPower, we have the GAMS one, and we have the Java based one. We have different language based, and we also have the RTDS, RSCAD, real-time simulator based one. So based on our size of the network, based on our analysis, like whether we are working on the electromechanical transients, electromagnetic transients, when we are dealing with the more powertronic, higher frequency oscillations, based on that we should go for the different simulation tools based on our requirement. So these are the challenges and research directions when we are going to implement for the smart city. So as you can see in the scale, we are going with the first starting with the building, and after that we are going with the campus, and after that we are going with the city, and next we are going with the territory. Like when we go for the challenges, we have the energy transition challenge, we have the environmental transition, and we have the numerical transition, we have the urban transition. So we can work on the any scale, like a building scale, or campus scale, or city scale, or territory scale, and we can work on the different challenges based on our research interest. Like we can work on the urban transition, we can work on the numerical transition, we can work on the environmental transition, we can work on the energy transition. If you are going to work in the energy transition, we can work in the smart grid or energy management and microgrids. And if you are going to work in the environmental transition, we can work on the flow management infrastructure. We can also work on the hydrologic risk climate changes. And if you are working in the urban transition, we can work on the what are the different urban models, planning and metropolization. We can work on the multi-category evaluation tools. So likewise, based on our interest, based on our area of research, we can work on the different research problems. We have the different challenges to work on the different research directions when we are going for the smart city implementation. So this is about my complete presentation, like briefly on the smart city, briefly on the smart grid, and more on the smart microgrid, like control and energy management. So thank you very much. Thank you for your time and consideration. So now I'm open for the answering your queries. Hello.
Any queries from the participant? If there is any query from the participants, you can also write in chat box also, or you can directly ask to the expert. Thank you, Dr. P. S.N. Raju sir, for giving a valuable and informative lecture on the energy management of microgrid for the smart cities. So once again, thank you, sir. You have covered, I think the participants will learn definitely about the energy management of microgrids and the smart cities. So definitely your talk will enrich their knowledge. So once again, thank you, sir, for giving your valuable time.
Well, once again, thank you for giving me this opportunity to present at this platform, and thank you very much to all the participants for your cooperation.
Thank you, sir.